yeah, one big element of the Global Action Plan is the joint programming as well. We would like, and we have seen really very pleased by the high commitment of different governments around us. We would like to have 5-6 strong government commitment partners with us that we can invite to prepare for the UN Habitat Assembly, and that can then also in a side event show what they have done to, prepare the steps of implementing the Global Action Plan and the resolution, because the idea is, of course, also that it's not just a paper. We want to immediately start also with implementation, and we heard the opportunity that there is with this global framework and commitment that it can really empower also governments and our line ministries and local authorities to then also introduce reform processes that are necessary, or just define targets and have strategic implementation frameworks to accelerate the commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals and also the new urban agenda. So the one thing we wanted to discuss very informally here, is a very informal discussion, and a talk is what can we present during the UN Habitat Assembly. Your first ideas, whoever was now here still available to join us, would then inform an organized meeting in a month's time, where we would have everyone who is engaged in this process reserve time and engaged in a structured manner. But today, we would start here. And of course, it would be fantastic if we can have you who are here also and share, what you're already doing and how this, action plan is aligned, and where you see potentials also for driving with the Global Action Plan, reaching to the next step, but also the other way around, what needs to be, pushed for to facilitate what's missing. And and then really present that also to mobilize other countries to make this Global Action Plan powerful. So that was the general today's objectives: to get prepared for the UN Habitat Assembly, look at your interest and ideas around regional strategies and programming, and also the consultations to the political endorsement, and then the country frameworks and deepening the discussion. So we have 1.5 hours roughly left. 1 hour, 1.5 hours left. So we would want to look at first a reflection on the Global Action Plan commitments, and if we can have there, for example, the experience from South Africa and how, what is done also there. We have already targets and so on set, so how this is also aligned and informed with a practical example. And then we could look at, okay, how can we leverage this for the regional country frameworks with another 30 minutes. We initially planned a 1 hour joint programming at country level, but I think if we can just touch up on the topic here and look at that, and then also see how we can have an aligned partnership vision at country level. So that's the agenda at first. I don't know if there are any questions at this time. Anything you would like to say from here or online? Then I would just, not really. Then I would just say, okay, the idea was, of course, the topping up of political commitments and the acceleration of the implementation. So we have the two, elements. And if there are no questions, then I would like to invite. Good morning.
Good morning.
Would like to invite. Then I would like to invite, the government of South Africa and Zuleka to present to us the approach to the informal settlements in South Africa that's structured around those questions of target setting and political commitment, and then translation of the implementation on the ground. Thank you.
I think let me start with the political commitment. Thank you very much, colleagues. This is Zuleka Sokopo from the Department of Human Settlement here in South Africa. I'm responsible for informal settlement upgrading as well as the disaster management responses. the major part of informal settlements is the policy aspect, because you can't upgrade informal settlements without the necessary tools. So the major tool that we have is the policy. What policy do we have? We have the Housing Act. And after the Housing Act, we developed what we codified in other, it's off. So in other countries, they will talk about regulations. So you have an act and then regulations. But instead of regulations, we have what's called the Housing Code. And within the Housing Code, you have different programs. And in these programs, one of the programs is the informal settlements upgrade. So unfortunately for colleagues that are online, are not going to see this, but it looks like that. This is the informal settlements upgrade program. Colleagues that are online, you can get it on our website. It's available on our website. The Housing Code, it specifies in terms of the policies how we go about developing informal settlements or upgrading informal settlements. So it's important to have all that in terms of the political. Okay. Also, as much as you see that the Housing Code, we have had it since 2009. And because of all the changes that we have seen from 1994, at that time, that we needed to focus more on informal settlements upgrading. And then we included this, the program of informal settlements in the Housing Code, right? Then 2009, we have this program and we're implementing this program, but our evaluations, because we continuously do evaluation, we found that the lens through which we look at this program is through a housing lens, not the real upgrading or transformation of human settlement. And therefore, one of the tools that we thought we will add to sharpen how we implement was the grant, to have money, dedicated grant funding for informal settlements upgrading. And the informal settlements upgrading program, if you hear South African talking about upgrading of informal settlements program or UISP, that's what is in the short term, it's called UISP in this country. And then the grant itself is informal settlements upgrading partnership grant. It's called partnership because it's viewed as you cannot upgrade informal settlements without getting into a partnership, either with the communities themselves that are living in informal settlements, the neighboring communities, as well as the CBOs, the NGOs, the private sector, everybody. So once we got the money, and therefore we also restructured the Department of Human Settlements nationally, we now have dedicated capacity, because it's important. You cannot implement or support the implementation, because that's our role as a national department, is to develop policy, provide funding, support implementation, as well as monitor and evaluate the implementation. So the department determined that they cannot support implementation if they do not structure the department in such a way that there's so dedicated capacity for upgrading of informal settlements. So in terms of the last question that you have asked about political support, that's, and in a nutshell, how we do that. We're also supporting, expecting that now at provincial level, as well as the municipalities. And our municipalities that receive the grant is the metropolitan municipalities. They get the grant directly from National Treasury. It goes directly to the metropolitan municipalities, and the smaller municipalities, they get the grant through the provinces. So even then, the metropolitan municipalities, we are encouraging them to also ensure that there is much more coordination in terms, because with them, they don't necessarily have to have a huge informal settlements upgrading unit, other than to ensure then that the capacity within the metropolitan municipalities is coordinated, your engineering, your town and regional planning or urban planning, your infrastructure planning, and project implementation, all of them there should be part of informal settlements upgrading. Yes, yes. So that's the structure part. Now, how then do we deal with the issues around implementation? It was not easy to just take this document and say, here's the document, go and implement. And that we have tried that. To say, we've written the document, here's the document, go and implement. And we found that it doesn't work. You need to ensure that you systematize, people understand where they should start. When they see an informal settlements, where should they start? And what's the end product look like? So then you can see that even the document itself divided informal settlements into the upgrading process into 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And that's exactly what we have done. We simplified this document and ensure that the milestones that are expected are much more simplified in such a way that then, and the second thing, the third thing is that the grant itself is defined in the grant framework, which is in the Division of Revenue Act. So it's governed through the Division of Revenue Act. Here, again, we love our acronym country. We call it DORA. So if you hear people talking about DORA, you know that they are talking about the Division of Revenue Act, which is where the parameters of what you can buy, what you can do, what you cannot, there is defined in that grant framework, which is the Informal Settlements Upgrading Partnership Grant. So we became much more clear because the grant itself only became active last year, 2021. All along, the Informal Settlements Upgrading Program was through the housing program. And hence, I was talking about viewing informal settlements through the housing lens, because the objective was to provide houses, not to necessarily upgrade or upgrade through the provision of houses. But the outcry out there was saying, no, even the community was saying, we can't wait because it takes a long process for us to be waiting for houses. There are certain things that you can do. So hence then we started then. So once you see an informal settlements with all of these, I think next time I'll give you all the pictures and the much more clearer presentation. Then where do we start? Community facilitation, which we are calling social facilitation. To say, you need to know who are these people that are there. Who are the leaders? Because there are leaders in informal settlements. They might not necessarily be political leaders because there are councillors that will be part of the governance of that. But inside the informal settlements, you need to interact with those people that see themselves as the leaders, and they are respected by the community within the settlement itself. So the grant itself pays for social facilitation. So it's important. You can't leave. You can't upgrade informal settlements to just come in and do your technical work. They need to be part of planning. We learned as planners that this theory of planning with people, what does it mean? You will learn it through informal settlements upgrading. So, and then the other part, which is in this same phase, social facilitation, the first step. The second one is to determine who are the people on the overall interacting with them, who owns the land that has been occupied. Is the land you do a deed search? Is the land owned by the municipality? Because in the majority of cases in this country, you'll find that the land is actually owned either by the municipality or a national government entity, whether it's ESCOM or SANRAL or PRASA, whatever, or and in few cases by private sector, but it's very, very rare that the land is owned. So you need to determine that. The third one, you need to determine now, the readiness of that land for development. So what we usually use is the spatial development frameworks that the municipalities would have. And we also have your national development framework that generally indicates the soil conditions in that area. So you don't necessarily go and do the EIA as the first step. You just read what the EIA of that area is saying. Also, the Council for Geoscience also does have some reports that we look at that do an assessment in the entire country, and so will you kind of know whether that settlement can be upgraded in situ, because that's the first choice, in situ upgrading. But as you sometimes see, especially in Cape Town, the informal settlements are very congested. So in most cases, you need to take some people out and put them elsewhere, although you want to upgrade in situ. And all of that is part of that negotiation. So you look at your transport routes. Are there available transport routes? Is there available park infrastructure? And then you do an indicative plan to say, okay, on the overall, it might take me 5 years, 10 years to upgrade this informal settlements because I need to put up bulk infrastructure. I need to do this and that and that. So that is phase one. Then you then go to phase two. And phase one doesn't take long because it's desktop information, and it might take you a month, 6 weeks or so to do all that. Then you quickly move to phase two. The first thing that you do in phase two now is to make sure then that you provide the human rights package. At the time, you can provide potable water, sanitation facilities, refuse removal, so that then you start dealing with the health and hygiene issues around the informal settlement. And at the same time, you will now start your technical work, which means you do your pre-planning studies, your EIA, environment, geotechnical studies, all of those pre-planning studies that are required, including your transport studies and all of that. So the outputs of that would be your start with your SG diagrams, start with your have your layout plans, right? Once you have the layout plan, that's essential for you now to I will show you the pictures. I think next time we have them. Then you lay that layout plan over the messy settlement. Then you start the reblocking now. Yeah. So that's when your negotiation also again with the people, you go back to the people and say, you see, our infrastructure is going to be located in here, your streets are going to be here. So you agree with them who can move, who cannot be moved. And where its shed is going to be adjusted and put in. And it's not a neat thing where every site is the same. Remember, you negotiate with them. They sometimes agree that Gogo can get a bigger site because likes gardening and all that. So you become flexible. So all those studies are done, right? Then we also pay for the studies, for technical studies through the grant. Bulk infrastructure. You're not going to see the bulk infrastructure here because it was done, approved in 2009. Over the years, we have had that we cannot upgrade because we don't have enough bulk. Then because of that, then we added the bulk infrastructure in the grant framework, because if it's not here, it should be in the grant framework because it gives the ability for us to spend the money. If it's not either of one, that is illegal, you can't spend. So bulk infrastructure is also part of phase two, where bulk water, but sewer, whatever, electricity, if there's a need of a small substation to be built, we contribute there, although the other departments does contribute, but we also contribute. So all of that now is done, your planning is done, the BAT is done, you submit your SG diagram and you get comments, you submit your layout plans, then you get comments and it's almost done. Then you move to the next phase, which is now phase three, which is your last phase. So once now, the last phase, then that's when then you start now at settlement level. Settlement level, you expected then to now your connector bag, to bring in your connector bag, to also do reticulation at site level. So the real infrastructure work happens at phase 3. So at site level, the requirements are that there should be standpipe, water, electricity, sanitation facilities. They are not coming all at the same time. It's an incremental approach. Don't come, it's an incremental approach. It might take years, and sometimes it's negotiation with the people of what starts first. And I think I have shared that people first prefer to get electricity in their sheds. They would rather have shared approved facilities or shared electricity or shared water. But electricity, they want their own electricity, which is good for several reasons, because it's part of transforming their lives and ensure them that they even their kids, they are able to study, they get better food because the mothers can buy in bulk. So phase 3 consists of all these different, and so we invest at site level, which is your F. Each F will get all of these things, and at settlement level there should be proper roads, stormwater drainage. We're insisting now on proper stormwater drainage because of the climate changes and what has also happened in KZN. The practice is still a struggle to ensure that happens. But we insisting then that we want to make sure then that there's proper road infrastructure. So once all of that is done, for us, we hand over to whatever project, whether it's a housing project or the people themselves get title deeds, and then they can do whatever that needs to be done. But what is important is to have also an understanding that the people that live in informal settlements, because we also do those door-to-door or enumeration studies, they are not all the same. So when you do your layout plans, you have to make sure then that there are sites that you are providing for rental stock, affordable rental stock, various forms of rental stock, because there would be people that would not qualify get your affordable housing. And at times they have houses in their villages. They don't want, that's why they were living in the former settlements at the same time. Also, the one of the most important parts in phase 3 is your investment in public spaces. We don't put any houses, but investment in public spaces, whether it's a playground, whether it is a crèche, whether it is a hall for people to gather, whether it is a recycling depot, because it provides jobs. So we are thinking of any other way where people can also use that facilities as a source of employment as well as benefit to them. And we have also seen some of the non-governmental sector. Also, they are very useful in some of these kind of like I forgot now the former mayor of Curitiba you utilize, like you inject something and all of a sudden certain things change automatically. Yes, acupuncture. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Then you put in that structure and all of a sudden that the lives of those people change. And one of the most important things that during your phase 2, when you start with your SG diagrams, we start numbering settlements. It's not the final numbers. Just every settlement will have a number. What we are finding also from the police, they say once we start doing that, the safety issues becomes much more better because it's better for them to police. When crime occurs, you are able to say it's check number F25, then they can go there. And sometimes when people commit crime and they run into the settlement, the others will say, and the person that you are looking for is in check number so. So there is that relationship between upgrading, security issues, and crime prevention issues. Okay.
Maybe one more wrap up.
Yeah. Then the last part is about, sorry, the last part is about the how then do we remind me the parts that I have not responded to.
Yeah, like a bit like what could be a preparation for the Habitat Assembly? What could you demonstrate us South Africa now?
We can provide you case studies, for example. We can also share with you some of, because I think we have seen synergies between the action plan and what we envisage as in terms of our program. And one of the major things I have forgotten in terms of the policies themselves, we have Special Planning and Land Use Management Act, which we use in conjunction with this, which allows us to do all those planning things that I have spoken about. So I think we can share with you some of the policies and also unpack the actions themselves on how then we can make those actions much more practical based on our own experiences.
Great, thank you. Because in the end, the idea was a bit like also with the requests from and discussions we had yesterday would be to, really invite some countries to come to the UN Habitat Assembly and then present that exactly strategic approach, even beyond case studies. The case studies is a great contribution to our global publication as well, that we're co-producing with our global task force with the many partners. And but I think it would be really important. The goal of this, let's say, also global action plan, and the way we set up this work is to go with let's say the implementation, governments, and the knowledge people together. We have the organizations mobilized around the knowledge and the global publication with the different milestones, and then we want also to be sure that what is produced there is meeting the needs of the realities in countries, and at the same time also that all the expectations and political commitments that are needed from technicians and governments are also supported by the process, because that's the big potential in addition to joint programming and supporting that. So if we can have your implementation framework and also the different instruments you have to inspire also other countries, I think that would be fantastic as one of the contributions. Before we maybe go further and see what other countries can contribute, is there any question to South Africa, to Zuleka, on this? Is there any, because she really described in detail, and thank you for that, the approach. So are there any questions to her, since we have her today available? Anyone also here in the room? Yeah, Malawi, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing what you're doing, and I think for us, I have taken a number of lessons from what you're sharing, and I would want to take this further up with you outside this meeting so that I can learn more. But then I wanted you were talking about the SG diagram. Is this the? Okay, all right. Yeah, and I think from what you're explaining, especially the engagement with the people, I think this is also something that we are learning, but this is the only thing I wanted you to explain further. since you have said it's the SG's, the Surveyor General's plan. Okay, so I think all the things that what you have explained, I have understood, but then I would want to take it up further with you outside this. But I think what you're doing is great, and also from the visit that we had, I think it has also given me some insights on how we can improve on the program that we are developing. And I would want to concur with you that working the participation, it is really, really important, because for us, the program that we started, we designed the program and said, okay, because we presented it at the World Urban Forum, we're looking for funding. But now on the ground, what we're doing now is totally different from what we submitted, because, you know, when you're planning something, people get wind of it. And then the people at the informal settlement where we're working on, when we went for the entry meeting, they were like, tell us the truth. Do you want to do this, or you have come because you want to evict us?
Yeah.
So we were like, no, we don't want to evict you. We want to work with you. And then after some time, when we first arrived, there were some hostilities. But after explaining and discussing, we sort of won the people over. And then the first intro meeting was with the block leaders in the settlements. And for them, they already have sections. So there's a block A, there's a block B. And then we said, okay, after we have worked with you, we will go to this. But after we had explained, then the community leaders were like, okay, thank you so much for being open with us. And because you said you don't want to move us, then we are going to work with you. But then we explained what you said to say, as we are planning, we are going to plan with you. But as we are planning, there will be cases where a road would be passing, there will be a house where the road would be passing. And then these people will definitely have to be relocated. But the fortunate part for us is the site that has been identified for relocating some of the families who may be affected is much closer to the industrial area where most of these people work than the settlement where they live now. So I think working with people is very important. And for us, the other issue that we want to understand is the issue of the funding. How do you source the funding, and then what contribution do the people make towards either the houses that they are going to construct? That is something that I would want to understand at this point. Thank you.
Maybe we collect some more questions before we hand over back. Is there any other question? South Africa, maybe online. Is there any question? Anything you would like to know from? No? Okay, then back to you. Yeah. Yeah, you need to, yeah.
Good morning.
Maybe you introduce yourself.
I'm Mary from Kenya, and from State Department of Housing and Urban Development, specifically Slum Upgrading Department. Mine, on Monday, we visit on Sunday. Oh, I can move. On Sunday, there is a site that we visited, and from the explanation from the developer, he was explaining that even from the minister, the houses which are constructed, they are constructed by a private developer, and it's a mixed use, and it will integrate all segments of the population, people from the slum, maybe the middle class, and maybe the higher class. So I got interested and I said, oh, this is very interesting, because it's not something that we have tried. Looking at the way in Kenya, the way development is so screwed is that the private sector inclined to providing houses for the upper middle class and the upper class. But the lower class, those are people who are living in slums and informal settlement. There's nobody who want to really come into the intervention, and it's only maybe the government. Even when you come to maybe the regional government, who are the county governments, it's not an area that they want to really intervene, to really maybe come and intervene and have houses for the poor. So my question is, how have you been able to integrate? I heard about the issue of subsidy. The government comes in, they construct the roads, the issue of water, the issue of electricity. And I would want to know how the developer become very interested, or the entry point of the developers to develop houses for these low income segments of the population in South Africa. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think let me start with the last question on housing development. The private sector, which is that developer, it has to be willing to utilize an integrated approach. It's there in our policies, but if then the developer themselves are not willing to ensure that then there's integration, it's never going to happen. So the developer itself, as you have heard the story, they approach the department and say that I have a piece of land in that area. And there were already some people that were not staying that far. So the plan itself was developed by the developer, and the agreement was that, remember that the most important thing is that the developer has to have is there to make money, and government is there to ensure then that the affordability of that development. So the agreement then was about ensuring then that everyone that needs to receive the house does receive the house through the subsidy. So we have categories of people that receive free housing through the subsidy system, and affordable also is also decided by the developer itself. Then the issue of the issue around there was an issue about how to get the money. Yes, the money there is it will. That's why I spoke about the Division of Revenue Act. In this country, the Minister of Finance divide funding, whatever that is collected as a revenue by the South African Revenue Services. It is then divided for all the social services, and also whatever the country needs. That is so February, which is a month before the start of the financial year, we get that. So everybody knows that Department of Human Settlements will be allocated X amount, right? And the X amount of that will be allocated for informal settlements upgrading, right? So it is part of the revenue fund that we get at national level. And that's why then I'm saying that then money falls from the national treasury to the metropolitan municipalities. Of course, it's part of what the Minister of Human Settlements manages, because that is her responsibility to ensure then that people, provinces and municipalities, they do what they are supposed to do, because there are parameters. It's not just free money. There are parameters that are drawn that we will use this money for 1, 2, 3, 4. And even that's why I'm also talking about a grant framework, that While, yes, the minister will announce that, but it's up to the national departments now to develop a grant framework together with the national treasury that says that for you to access the money for informal settlement, these are the parameters. One of the parameters is to develop a business plan that indicates what are you gonna do in each settlement. What is the name of an informal settlement? Where is it? What are you gonna do? What's the estimated number of households? Is it in phase one, which means you have not done anything? Or there is some work that you have done, or so what are those things? So which phase are they in? Or you have done phase one and phase two already. So now you are at the stage where you want to provide now reticulation. So all of that information is a long business plan that day. And then we assess that business plan at national level to see whether it's credible, it's not credible. And then also it is required in terms of the framework that every month they submit how much they have spent. And on a quarterly basis, in terms of the outputs, we track, me as the program manager, we will go then and track what the outputs, what are they doing? Are they, have they spent on what they are supposed to spend on, right? And we also then do an on-site visits. They know that on a monthly basis, we select, because we can't visit all of them, we select certain settlements, we go visit them, we take pictures, write reports about what is being done. And for example, after 2 quarters, which is our financial start on the 1st of April for provinces and 1st of July for metropolitan. So after 2 quarters, we do an assessment of where each one is. Like right now is the time for us to do an assessment for provinces. When things are not going well, then we then either request for a recovery plan, or our assessment will be saying, no, even if they do a recovery plan, they will not be able to recover. And then we move the money around. Or sometimes we provide support, extensive support. We request one of our entities, which is the Housing Development Agency, to go and help them in terms of the support that they. Remember, I said informal settlements, the way that we envisage, is not about the house. It's about infrastructure. It's about formalization. It's about the livelihood of people. It's about livable neighborhoods. The houses themselves, they come much later. As long as people have now title deeds, you've seen at the Rugby Club on Sunday that people are even beginning to demarcate their own fences, because now they know that I'm not going to be moved. I have my own standpipe, so I'm starting now to invest, and they are putting up fences. I'm sure next year, if you can come, they would have started to build, even if it's 1 room. So they will not wait for government now. That's the approach that we are looking at. Of course, there's the other part where a flare off, where then there is this PPP, which is your public private partnership, where then the developer itself is open to integration. We're providing subsidies in terms of the bulk infrastructure, as well as for the housing purposes for the people that want to live in that development. I think I have answered the questions. I hope.
Great, thank you so much. Any other last question, or yeah? Okay, we have several.
Maybe first, bringing back the people who come to just know what we are.
Yeah, that's true. We have Lesotho and Kenya here. We're discussing, well, maybe just framing it, we want to discuss a bit the preparation for the UN Habitat Assembly. There will be a more formal meeting, but the idea is that we identify some countries that have, also already started to scale in different ways, to have them really demonstrate at the UN Habitat Assembly their targets, their way forward, and present a framework of implementation towards the 2030, where we build the foundation, as we said, for a bigger scaling than towards 2050. So it would be great if we can, yeah, that's the discussion at first, but we have then South Africa here as, of course, host and political leader around the topic being one. So, and that was the presentation of how it is aligned and what is done, and then looking at which other governments are interested in this. It's just a sensitization now, no commitments needed, but also ideas. What could you bring to the table to demonstrate during the UN Habitat Assembly and inspire other countries, and at the same time also, put the commitments that are, let's say, a quite high level at the resolution language into the context of implementation and new realities of implementing SNUM upgrading and informal settlements upgrading. And then also looking forward, of course, we would like to see countries that go with us the path of implementation, where we can monitor the scaling and support also, the let's say, the top up of political commitments that we were talking about and larger impact of implementation, informal settlements and slums. So that's where we are at now. But then I would take more questions on the South Africa case, and then we would just wrap up with that discussion of what countries can contribute. Yeah.
Maybe before the questions, I can also add and say the approach to informal settlements, as I have said, it has changed over time. There was a time where we had put a target that says we want to eradicate informal settlements by 2014. We even have a year by 2014 we're going to eradicate informal settlements. But over the years, that language we don't want to use it anymore. And also what we now, with the new approach I'm trying to do, is for also the politician not to look at upgrading of informal settlement and feel like it's going to be like that other development at Fleurhof, nice little nice houses. It's going to be as messy as the rugby club. So that is the part that sometimes you'll have to work through, even your colleagues as the champions of informal settlements upgrading or transformation, to ensure then that they would not expect, because even ourselves, our MNE unit gave up and said, no, we're not going to do MNE in informal settlements, you do it yourselves, because they were struggling to see the changes that I was seeing as a person responsible for informal settlements, because they are expecting to count how many houses they are there. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that addition. Yeah, then the next question. Yeah, number 2.
Maybe the question I have is that when we went for the field visit,
introduce yourself again.
Okay, my name is Anne Wanjiru. I come from one of the second biggest informal settlements in Kenya. And I'm also, that is Mathare. Organization is called Mathare Legal Aid and Human Rights Advocacy, which is a member of the Wairo Commission. My question is that I sit in the Settlement Executive Committee, which is spearheading what our government in Kenya is doing, called Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Project. I'm one of the secretary of one of the informal settlements. So my question is that because the government has 4 components, and one of the components is the security of tenure. And as you said about when we are talking of improving the informal settlements, the way when you said of monitoring, and they could see not what you are monitoring. So the key seat is coming and improving the infrastructure, and then provide the security of tenure. And then from there now we can improve the way we saw in that village where somebody is fencing the compound. But now my question is, what type of security of tenure document do you give those people are given, so that they're able to know that now I own this land, nobody is taking it from me, now I can plan how I want, after you provide now all those other infrastructures that are needed?
For now, It's not yet uniform.
The microphone.
Sorry. So, for now, it's still not yet uniform. However, the gold standard, we all want a title deed. But before you get that title deed, we have various stages where you give like your, kind of like your community tenure, where they know that they are not going to be moved. And also you register them. And those registration right now, they are still managed by the municipalities. Who are the people that live in that settlement? Hence, then they also have the numbers and all of those things. So it's, and we have been, for now, we have been trying to see whether we cannot provide households with some form of paper while we are waiting to reach that gold standard, which is the title deed.
Because I realized that as I was coming, we had a meeting with my team. And I realized that the challenge we are having, especially in one of the informal settlements where I come from, that is called Mashimoni in Mathare, is that there is some struggle. If the government says that now we want to give you the tenure, the security of tenure, the title deed, who is going to receive it? They are not going to give individual household in this program of easing. They are not going to give one for the community. Yes, they are supposed to give one for the whole community now so that the government can give land to the community where it is demarcated. But what, under what name or under? So what we have come up with, and it is very encouraging to form circles, which now we can have our own name so that the land can be, the title of the security can, the document can be under the circle. Then from there now, because you know, always in the informal settlements, the population is more than the land. You'll find that one person owns several structures or houses and another one owns two. So I think that's where our challenge was, but at least I've now come to learn something which I can go back and share with my team.
Yes, please go.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. My name is Melissa Keda Matakane from the beautiful mountain kingdom of Lesotho. Being the neighbor of South Africa, I've noticed some few issues. The issues of land grabbing. I would like to know how you handle it because I think most of your informal settlements are based on land grabbing, and partly because of our peoples in the neighboring countries. The other thing that I've noticed when we went for the field, in the informal settlements, you mentioned the issue of stormwater drainage. I didn't notice that. Secondly, even at the developed area, the mixed use developed area, I've noticed that you don't have some issue. You don't do rainwater harvesting. So you have runoff water. I think that really distracts or destroys your infrastructure. I think that's a note to take. Can you please harvest rain? You know, when you come to South Africa, the other thing when you get like it's raining, it's the runoff. So I think it's a point to take. You have an issue of water. Thank you.
And I think what you're 100% correct about Rugby Club. They have not yet put any road infrastructure other than to open up the roads. And you've seen that they have not yet put in your sanitation because they are, that area is struggling with bad sewer is a problem. So the idea is that they don't want to dig and prepare the road bedding and all that, and then again dig when they are ready to put in the sanitation facilities. So also I have said that it's an idea that we have recently started with to ensure then that everybody, all these as part of the upgrading process, they put in stormwater drainage and proper roads. My colleagues that are managing this at provincial level or even at municipal level, I still have to do some work to ensure then that the whole issues around ensuring that the proper stormwater drainage and proper roads is completely done. So that's the the struggles is because not everything comes at once when we are upgrading. Sometimes because there are certain things that are lagging behind, then we put other things. That area, there's still big problem of bulk sewer that is out there. Then the issue around that is, I think we need to communicate that with the city of Joburg, because they have to that the developer who's managing that site has to do what you are suggesting. You will find that in South Africa actually is the high market residential areas that are actually starting to put in solar, as well as your harvesting of water and that, not necessarily in the low income. I think what you are suggesting is something that I think we need to talk about with the city of Joburg, and then they can communicate with the developer. Yes.
You didn't answer the issue of land grabbing.
Oh, yes,
Because it's a major.
land grabbing, yes, it's there. And the people in this country, they have studied the law. It's against the law to do land grabbing. At the same time, our law says that when people then stay in that land and you allow them to stay in that land for a certain period, you cannot wake up one day and say, that's my land, you go. You have to first go to court. And so that you can get a court order, that is, you get a court order. And over the years, then our jurisprudence has actually also said, it's not enough to just get a court order. You need to know where those people are going to go. Especially, we're talking about large groups of people. Of course, in this country, we always abuse the law, even now individual, because that law only happens, it is only applicable when there is a group of people that have grabbed that land for residential purposes. But, and there is no contract between two parties. But you'll find that now, even if we had a rental agreement, then people and then the next person doesn't pay, then they are now asking for alternative accommodation. Alternative accommodation only applies in the cases when there's a land grab. There are also that is the also responsibility of municipalities to put up notices with regard to ensuring that the land is not land grab. It is also the responsibility of the landowner, if you are a private landowner, to ensure that then there's no land grabbing. So nobody comes in your property and stays in your property. At the same time, as I say, if you allow people to stay in your property and after a year, then you decide, really, there are 5,000 people in there, let them go. It can't work that way. It's your fault. You go to court, and also the municipality has to join you, because then those people have to get alternative accommodation.
Okay. Those are almost similar things that happens in Kenya. And actually, as we experience, especially at the coastal region, that is Mombasa, Kwale, Marindi, the issue of professional squattism. Today, this land, maybe something happens, they benefit, they move again to another, and it's not just the people who are living there, they are given by maybe leaders who want to benefit. So that's an issue that even as government we are trying to scramble with it and to know how to deal with it. But my issue, my other question that I want to find out is on the issue of the funding of community-driven housing. How do you fund if it is not government which is going to build the houses? Do you have a mechanism, or do you have a fund that the community can borrow money, then they can be able to build their own houses, maybe incrementally, and what is the interest rate, and for how long, and how do you put them in groups so that they are able to secure, they are able to guarantee each other so that one will not have scored, maybe you have scored with payment, the other person is responsible of that. And what is the interest percentage? At what rate do you give them? Because this one is not a market rate, not like banks where you get 15%, 20%. So if the government, which is giving out a loan to them to build, at what percentage and the duration and the mechanism that you could, I'm interested.
One, we have the people's housing process, which is community-based housing. And we give the same amount of subsidy. So we ask them, with the people's housing process is also part of the housing code. You can get the information also, you can download it. And you will see 2009 housing code, and then you will see a list of programs. Then it's called PHP, which is people's housing process. Yeah, PHP, yeah. So the PHP is also about the group of people that will come together. They'll get the full subsidy, each one will get a full subsidy from government. And it's mostly utilized, I don't know, it's by default, but most people that live in rural areas would use the people's housing process. And they would then be provided with full subsidies to access that. And in most cases, then there would be NGOs like your Habitat for Humanity that will help them to like some of them will then be trained on bricklaying so that it becomes cheaper to build their house. And a whole lot of range of things. I'm sure if you are just nearby, you can go to KwaZulu-Natal. That's the biggest PHP. They had about 22,000 houses that they have built through the PHP process. And the community there even have learned to do some welding. They have their own windows. They make their own doors. All of those. So that's part of the whole process. However, the second part of what you are talking about, incremental process, we have the NHFCU in short. It's called the national. It's one of our entities. It's kind of a bank, but it's national housing. Now that you are asking. It's a National Housing Finance Corporation, NHFC, yes, National Housing Finance Corporation. They do not lend money directly. They use subsidiaries. When the post office was functional, they would use like the post office. They will use like your small banks, like there's the Itala Bank. I think the colleagues from KZ, from Lesotho would know that those small banks, not the commercial ones, they use that for people like small amounts of money, maybe an equivalent of 5,000 rand, and then the people would pay, and then they go to something else. So there is also that alternative, but there's also the alternative of the people's housing process. Yes. The colleagues from NHFC says that the repayment rate, especially amongst women, is high. When they come and borrow some money to start building their houses, they come back and pay and then come and get additional funding. Yes, yes.
I was thinking, Christina.
Yeah.
I was asking Mary if she could just we have time. We have time, and she can just take 5 minutes and explain about the affordable housing program.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we can have every country briefly, and then maybe one message by you, and then we prepare the just agreeing maybe on the relevance of the agenda for the formalized meeting, where you would then also prepare your contribution. Is that okay? So then we have yeah. So then yes, we have one more question for.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Peter Langat. Well, I just want to get from the South African delegation the scale of the problem that we are dealing with. How many people live in slums? Just maybe to get that comparative analysis. And what would be the main issue? Is it the provision of housing, the basic infrastructure? Well, perhaps maybe you can answer that and then ask more questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we talk about informal settlements, right? We do not use the word slums. Currently, we have 3,600 informal settlements. 3,600 informal settlements. Most of them were formed, that's why my colleagues is asking me about the land grab. Most of them were established during COVID because there was a moratorium on eviction. So, and then our communities, of course, they took advantage of that. But it's not like a 90%. They were there, informal settlements have been there even before COVID. So it's not like we're saying that COVID made informal settlements. I know that, not at all, but when you look at the rate at which they were formed, the rate was much more higher during COVID. The reason that people is about urbanization. People come to urban areas and they cannot get accommodation, affordable accommodation. The informal settlement provide people that comes to urban areas without jobs, guaranteed jobs, with affordable accommodation. It's an entry point to the urban. That's the long and short of it. It's not about infrastructure, it's access to shelter. That's although in terms of upgrading, then we are providing now the infrastructure that is required and the formalization that is required in terms of the land planning.
Well, thank you. Well, the reason why I asked the question was because we had a presentation on the pipeline slum upgrading. And now the issue that was coming up was that there was a shift from provision of social housing to basic infrastructure. Is it that the numbers of people living in the slums were growing a bit more?
Yeah.
And the government was a bit having issues or challenges in provision of this housing.
Yeah.
So that is where I was coming from. Now, in Kenya, we have a challenge in upscaling the slum upgrading because really at the moment it is government-led sector. And the reason is we don't have that financing framework that can be able to rope in private sector. So we've been having a set of incentives in conjunction with the National Treasury, but they don't seem to be working for the informal market housing segment. And the issue now, we are faced with this to operationalize these incentives for the housing developers and for the market players in the informal market, housing market. So does South Africa have one incentives maybe for to rope in the private sector to come in to make the sector a bit more attractive to these market players? And how do you operationalize it? Well, it's a bit ambiguous, but I hope you get the point.
Okay. Okay. The first thing is that I think you are more talking about housing development more than the real upgrading of informal settlement that we're talking about, which is making informal settlements livable through infrastructure development and providing people with security of tenure. dealing with their livelihoods. That's the approach. And the approach that is through all the lessons that we have learned when we allowing people now to get the infrastructure and the necessary security of tenure so that they can build their own houses. And they can apply also for the subsidy again. How do we then attract the private sector to informal settlements upgrading? No, you can't. No one. This is, remember, private sector is there to make money. Let's not kid ourselves. So what money has to be made in upgrading? It can only be made when you are now starting to build houses. That's where private sector plays the biggest role, and that's where they see their profit margins, at least. Because remember, the infrastructure development, your bulk infrastructure in any development, that's the function of the municipality. It's not the function of the private sector. And private sector will not make money unless there is now a PPP that has been entered into, and government saying one private sector to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the what we are going to be providing. So government itself should think about how then they can then upgrade this informal settlement by providing funding itself through their revenues, and would then attract private sector when then all the infrastructure has been done, the formalization has been done, because that's from our side, that's where private sector sometimes complain, is that the formalization aspect, it takes long to go through all the planning processes. Sometimes it can take 18 months. So once you say to them, the formalization is done, your infrastructure is there. So if you want to invest in this settlement, you can invest. My belief is that that's where then you can then charge their contribution.
Okay, good. I think that was a beautiful last remark and question also, wrapping it up very nicely and putting it into context. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to invite then Kenya, maybe to briefly share as first country, just what could be something you could highlight and share going forward. And then after Malawi, Lesotho, if you want to. Go ahead, yeah.
In Kenya, as much there are challenges, there are issues that the government has taken head on, and especially in the provision of affordable housing and social housing. And okay, it has taken a bit of time planning, looking for land, looking for funding, and the issue even for PPP to provide affordable housing. And there are several programs which are on the pipeline. We have several block of development within the Eastlands, Nairobi, where we are going to develop over 20,000 housing units. They are on the sides of advertisement and the procurement. So, and within the procurement process, being a government takes a bit of time because of the preparation of the rest. And the other side of the social housing, okay, we can say we have not done quite well. But this year, no, in the last 2020, the houses that we are developing, which will be like 12,600 at Mukuru, and we'll be relocating some of the people who have been residing in another slum called Mukuru, which is poorly. Looking at those areas, they lack water, they lack food, they lack sewer line. So the issue of even draining their waste to Nairobi River, to become now a dead river. So that is one already there. We have how many units? We have 500. We have 5 units with 920 units, which will be ready made by next year. And we have the second call off, which we are going to develop another 6 units, 6 blocks of high rise, that is ground and 11 floors. It's not like here where most of the houses I've seen, it is ground and 4.
Yeah.
Ground and 3. There it is ground and 12. Because some of the big corporations are residing in Nairobi and Mombasa, Kisumu. Kisumu, we have the issue of tenure. Tenure people who decide into asset that which has never been regularized. But through a program which is funded by the World Bank, by the Kenya Informal Settlements program, it has done a bit of tenure in some of the settlements, and they have issued like 25,000 titles, and they have developed a lot of infrastructure within those settlements. And infrastructure involves the issue of roads, the issue of drainage, the issue stormwater drainage, sewerage, footpaths. Because at times, if you come to some of our, when we went to that slum, I wondered, is it a slum? Looking at a road which is 12 meters. In our areas, I think even a footpath is an issue. You have to jump to.
Yeah.
If you have seen a snake in a slum cell like that, because they are so dense and people have barely taken advantage of any open space. And so there's some settlements which are benefiting from tenure. They have developed the issue of those roads, the issue of again of the provision of some of the social infrastructure, the issue of markets, because as you have said, housing not just a house. Because when you're developing a settlement, you really have to look at the holistic, because our main objective of upgrading of slums and informal settlement to improve the life and livelihoods of people living and working within those areas. So market is part of it. Health, there are areas where we build, maybe find maybe the need is a health center, because maybe the government hospital is quite very far. We have we build schools, because maybe where the government split is very far and the population is too high. So you look at, you prioritize having a school, and that's another. You wonder, why do you have to build schools in slums? And that is when you're not commanded. But you see, the minute you improve the well-being of people, you get educated. You don't have to go back there. You'll be the first person to move. You move out and you leave others. Then you're able to improve, and then you become a pace setter for that community. And you have seen that people with giving, saying that if it were not for that, I will not be what I am. And from there we're able to. So we have then we have other aspect of we build here you don't have that issue. We build these floodlights whereby they are 30 meters. So within a settlement, it's able to secure. It takes two things: the issue of safety, the issue of security. Because when there's right, you're able now to meander through. Even actually that one is economic empowerment. Because if you are closing your business at around 6, when the darkness is really creeping in, but now you're able to extend your time, you can now close your business until 10. So you find these people, they have more time to sell their products. Then the issue of safety. People used to be raped in these slums. Children, women. These days, because you can be seen, nobody can hear it, can hijack you and stick in those rooms. And so we have seen a lot of improvement on that. So we are looking at housing is not just housing, but housing being a process. It carries all that in it, and you have seen that we have taken at times we do this and we look at the hanging fruits in some of the settlements, which now after looking at that we see these are the immediate mitigations we are going to do. Within KISIP, we are doing the issue of slum mapping. I'm shocked to hear that within a period of 2 years, because COVID was 2 years, from 2020 3,600.
No, they were there before, remember?
No, I'm saying I'm saying the acceleration of having more than that is too high within 2 years. But I know they are there, they have been there, but you see now you have said they were accelerated during the COVID period because people, human beings are funny, people want to take advantage. And so we have been saying that we have this kind of operation. We are going to do slum mapping. That's that we know for sure how many slums we have in the country. Then after then from the slum mapping, we'll be able to identify the attributes. Some of the attributes are within some, because not all of them are. If you go to the coastal region, they are different. You go to Kisumu, they are different. You come to Nairobi, you go to like Kibera. There, if you want to do tenure, it is not possible because the population is so dense. There is no space. That now you say you are going to subdivide those lands, and then maybe you give less than 10 meters to each and every person. So maybe some of those are the issues that we have, as a government, you have been doing, and we want to upscale and see how we can really be able to improve and see. That's why we want to learn how we integrate the private sector on the issue of slums and home settlements. In our country, we use both, because even a settlement can degrade to be a slum. So you have to see how do you prevent those settlements to degrade to informal to being slums. So even as you're talking about maybe the issue of tenure, that's another area that KISIP has done, as I've said, and we are trying to see how now do we improve the housing for those people, especially now people-driven housing. That's why I've asked that question, so that those 25,000 households who have benefited from the titles, they get, now we establish a fund that they can be borrowing money to improve their houses. And we are seeing that so that we don't just have the government driven, then you can have now the people driven, and then we can have another aspect of the incremental housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Any other sharing from another country or question? Yeah. You want to go first? You haven't said anything. First.
Okay, thank you. Once again, my name is Mampaka Mabesa. I'm from the Mountain Kingdom of Lesotho, and I work for the Directorate of Housing. So I would like to share a bit on how we can accelerate action towards slum transformation, maybe, and also tipping into our own experience as Lesotho. Firstly, I think it's one of the most, I haven't had people talk about it. It's about understanding and raising awareness to try to change the attitudes and cultural practices and norms that exist in our African countries, in our African people, because those also, if they're not touched to try to change towards achieving sustainable development goals, we'll keep working on something and not even achieving things. But those needs to be changed for impact. And those are like beliefs, the attitudes of the people, the values, the norms that they're always practicing. And also that can also impact on the change in behavior. Those kinds of things, if we tap on them and communicate heavily to the people, we know we can get somewhere. People, yeah, we have just beautiful policies currently, and we are trying to implement them, but without success or to a smaller success and impact. But I've seen that people have attitudes and it's really hard for them to capture what we are trying to develop. So if we try to communicate with people from an earliest stage of every development agenda that we want to implement, engage them, work with them, I think we can achieve something. Also, I also think we need to work on increasing awareness about the call to action. If we increase awareness about the call to action, will action to transform slums and informal settlements, and also seek government commitments, because that is what is also lacking, and it's always weak. In terms, government have a weak commitment towards the land administration systems and the housing management systems, and that also impact on delivering our policies. We also have to press for action to establish and implement and scale up and maintain a comprehensive national and citywide strategies. And on that, because if I tap on our experience as Lesotho, we are currently developing the National Slum Upgrading and Prevention Strategy, along with the citywide slum and upgrading action plan. And on completion of that, we would need support to raise awareness, to inform the people about these beautiful strategies that we have. It's what we have seen. Normally, it's not even like people are not willing to comply. People don't know. They lack knowledge. They are not informed. They are not told. They're only told. They are only approached by the government when they are doing wrong, but they were not told how to do right and how to comply. So if we can press on awareness and support dissemination activities, I think we can get somewhere, and that will increase the engagement and the participation of the people themselves. In that way, we'll be working together and not even to reduce almost the conflicting rationalities that are almost existing in every country between the state and the people going that side, believing what they are believing with the attitudes and practices and norms, and the state itself doing something because it has the right. The state has the right. It does the law in every way, and sometimes not even communicating with the people from the start of the law. So if people are engaged at the earlier stages and engaged often enough, that could lead us to something. And as well, I have another issue on the capacity development. As African countries and developing countries, we do lack capacity. We have this beautiful, we have the support from UN Habitat, UNDCA, African Union, and we develop these beautiful policies. And when they come down to us at the ground level, we don't have the capacity to implement such policies. So we need capacity development, the skills to plan, to engage, and even to communicate, even with the people. We also need to be helped. We need to be assisted, and we need to be taught how to do that. Because all these policies are really nice, very nice, and it's not even so much difficult to implement. But we find out ourselves as the people, as the employees, the government people that are practicing and delivering such services. Sometimes we lack capacity, and we are not even brave enough to say we lack capacity to implement this. It is what is actually happening. You can even realize, because now we have, as we are localizing the SDG 11 in particular, and the implementation of the New Urban Agenda in the country. Of course, we have the support of the UN Habitat and the UNECA. So they started first at the capacity development on the first issue of the urban developing the urban policies with regard to achieving the SDGs and the New Urban Agenda, as well as another component of data assessment to see if we have the capacity to collect, even to identify the data in order to inform policy decisions and also inform the actions towards achieving sustainable development goals in the context of the New Urban Agenda and the SDG 11. So I think that could lead us to something if we look at such issues. So we have a long way to go if we really need our capacity. Okay. I'm sure my colleague has something else to add on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, actually, I don't have anything to add on, because I think what you've mentioned is what we have made on the ground. That most of the policies, we do them in the offices without informing or involving the communities. So what we have learned actually is that people are not aware. So it is not that they do it on purpose or anything, but they are not aware. I think the issue that we learned recently, so because of the Land Act, people own leases, but they don't know the conditions of their lease. So actually dissemination, education campaigns are the only way to go in meeting the people of the informal settlements. And it should be ongoing.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, then we have the next speaker.
Thank you so much.
The microphone.
I do, but then I keep forgetting. First of all, I think before I share what I have, I wanted to ask those maybe Kenya, Lesotho, and South Africa, if you have national habitat committees and how you work with them. I wanted to ask that first before I comment. Yep, that's it.
We do have the Additional Habitat Committee. It was set according to the standards of the UN Habitat when we were preparing for the Habitat 3. So the National Habitat Committee works as the overseer of the UN Habitat programs in the country or any other habitat issue on the ground. Thank you.
From us, we have various committees, but we don't call them habitat committees. We meet on a regular basis with the 3 spheres of government. We do meet with the community organizations, also it's different forums. So we meet with academia, also it's a different forum. So it's not necessarily called habitat forum, but yeah.
Okay. There is a habitat committee, but it has not yet been meeting quite often. And it is chaired by a sister department. But on our side, what I would say, we meet our stakeholders once, maybe twice in a year, the annual meetings, which are yet to hold because of the issue of COVID and the regulations of it. Just quite, we have not really had a physical meeting, but we usually really engage with the communities and the people who are within our right, because we cannot have people outside, but people who are within the slum. The main stakeholders within the human settlements, especially the slum areas.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would like to add on that with regard to the National Habitat Committee that we have in the country. Recently, because we have tried to scale up issues of adequate housing and spread it across the country in Lesotho, we realized that the National Habitat Committee, as it stands, is basically based at the central, in the capital city, and it's not reaching out in the districts and in the mountainous regions. So we have decided, while we were doing the national housing policy dissemination across the country since May, we realized that we can, along with the dissemination, we need to establish the districts habitat committees in the districts of Lesotho, and that's what we have done. And those people there, they will be. Now we are at the point where we know that we need to support them. We need to support the team. We need to capacitate them with regard to issues of adequate housing, the SDGs, and the new urban agenda. So we are at a point where, because of lack of funds, we couldn't continue the program, but we have a plan that we really need to seek funding in order to accelerate our actions towards reaching the adequate housing goal. and also reducing the slums and informal settlements growth in the country, because we have realized that it's not that people just don't know how to, they don't know about the development control codes, they don't know about the planning standards, the Town and Country Planning Act. All those are nice policies that we have. But when we tell them during the dissemination, when we tell them about them, they were like, wow, okay. And then we didn't know, because implementing those could actually help them achieve the standards of house. Of course, in Lesotho, we don't have people living in shacks like permanently. We don't have that. So whatever they are building as permanent structures, we use brick and mortar. And a lot of people are affording to do that, not affording to reach the adequate level that we need in the context of adequate housing. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think I am happy to hear that you also have the National Habitat Committees, whether they are vibrant or not. On our part, this is the first thing that I'm going to say. On our part, I have to say, having the National Habitat Committee makes our work easier, because like my Department of Urban Development, is a small department, and we have a lot of work to do. So whatever we do, we work with the members of the National Habitat Committee. Some of them are from other ministries, which are within the sector. But then we also have NGOs. We have Habitat for Humanity, and then we have what we call CICOT. It's an affiliate of STI. And we work with them. Whatever we do, we plan with them. Like the National Slum Upgrading Program, we are working very closely with CICOT. We're doing everything together. When we went out to mobilize the communities, you could tell the difference between me as a government official and an official from CICOT. We are sending out the same messages, but the way the guy from CICOT articulates and the way that I explain to let the people understand better the person from CICOT. And what we have noted is the people trust the NGOs than us, because they feel government is out there to evict them, while the NGOs are there to assist them. So I would like to say one of the things as we're looking at this global action, one of the things is we need to embrace the National Habitat Committees. And in our committee, we even had people from the informal settlements. Of course, their organization sort of died, and we are having challenges working with them now because they don't have like a leadership. But it is very important, the things that they sort of pointed out, that the people out there don't know the regulations, what they have to do. If we work with the National Habitat Committee, and we embrace the NGOs, dissemination of information is going to be very easy, and we're going to achieve a lot. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is the issue of political will. I think it is very important that politicians embrace urban development. For us, it has always been rural development, and not much in as far as urbanization is concerned. But now, government has prioritized the urbanization. It is one of the pillars in our national development strategy. And because of that, I feel it has opened up a lot of opportunities. Like my ministry is very much interested now in the slum upgrading program, such that for the first time, we have been given resources to implement preliminary activities for the National Slum Upgrading Program. All along, we've been submitting the project proposal for consideration under what we call public sector investment plan. for funding, but we have not been given funds. But now, because our minister is up in arms, we have been given the funding. So political will is very important, and prioritizing the urbanization is also important. And the other, secondly, the issue of national housing policies and national urban policies. We have upgrading of slums as one of the strategies in our policy. Now, the Office of the President and Cabinet asks us, checks on us, what we have been doing to implement the policy. So because they are interested in us implementing the policy, they are interested in our programs. But if we didn't have the policy, they wouldn't have been interested. So countries should also make sure that they have these national urban policies, because it is very important. And the other thing is, as we're looking at upgrading slums, we should also share information on the preventive mechanisms, because we can continue upgrading the slums. But if we don't have mechanisms to prevent further growth of slums, it will be like a vicious cycle. We will be upgrading and upgrading and upgrading, and then we will forget the other programs. So for us, what we are doing is, through the Malawi Vision 2063, which is the national strategy, there is the development of secondary cities. 8 centers have been identified to be developed as the secondary cities, and work has started. And we believe that if these centers are going to be developed, backed by industrial development, then jobs are going to be created. And instead of everyone coming to the 4 primary cities, they will be able to go to these other cities, and they will find jobs. They will be empowered. That way, they will also be able in these areas to land will be opened up for housing and other developments. So if we have that, it means to a certain extent, we are going to prevent further growth of slums. It is not going to be easy, but as Lesotho said, if we sensitize the people, they should know. If they have information is power. If they have information, then we'll see that most of the problems that we have are going to be resolved. It is not going to be today, but maybe in 10 years' time, something is going to happen. But we have to start now. If we don't start now, this vicious cycle will always be there. Capacity development, I agree, it is also very important that we need to have the skills that are required for us to do this work. The last point that I would like to share is making this housing affordable. How do we make housing affordable? I know that in my country, we have local building materials that people use in the villages. They have these houses. It's not as if they construct the house today and then in 2 years, the house has collapsed. How do they manage that? What can we do to improve on the local building materials that are there? Because like for us, we cannot afford to construct the houses like South Africa has done, those high-rise building. We don't have that kind of money. So we need to share experiences as well on the local building materials that can be used, so that these people, you see, the houses that they are living in now are not good houses. But then how can we make sure that we use the local materials, the local building materials that are there, to make sure that these people have houses? The same amount of money that we can spend if we use the local materials, it will take us a long way than if in my country now they're saying, okay, construction should be using cement blocks. How many people in the informal settlement can afford cement blocks? Recently, we visited a center which has been constructed using rammed earth, and it is a high-rise building, ground plus 1. Very beautiful. They have also, in some cases, they have used they call it the adobe type of
Mm.
construction. So they put soil in sacks and then they construct. I wish research can be done on this. We have a National Construction Industry Council. It has started working on researching on this rammed earth building, but I think they also need the support. So my appeal is, can we look at the building materials, the local building materials in different countries, because I believe they can be different. Can we look at these and then can we promote these to construct the houses, like for us countries who cannot afford to do the ground plus 12 houses for our people. And then on that one, you mentioned the issue of someone mentioned the issue of culture. In my country, if I take a person from, we are doing that, of course, we are proposing to have ground plus 2 houses, flats, but then will they be happy to live in those flats? That is something that we also need to think about as we are doing this. That's why we want to plan with them so that they tell us what they have in mind. If we say adequate housing to them, what does it mean? And lastly, we are coming up with a sectional title. I believe we didn't have a section title before in my country, and this is also going to help maybe in improving the issue of access to housing. If someone comes up with flats, I can buy a 1 unit, but that was not going to be possible before because I wouldn't get a title to that since we didn't have the sectional title. And lastly, I would like to, thank UN Habitat for convening these meetings, because this is an opportunity where we can share experiences and brainstorm on things that we can do, how we can do things differently in order to improve the issues of affordable housing and slum upgrading. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We are we have still the lunch. Can we talk around the lunch table? Okay, it's okay, then very, very short responses, and then I would like to wrap up.
Okay, maybe on the issue of the building materials, maybe where at times, like our government, we have really been pushing for many years to promote the building materials, the low cost building material, and use they are called SSBs, that's stabilized soil blocks, whereby you use the cement. It has a long life than the land soil. But if the government itself is not using those materials and you want to push for the community to use the material, you have to start using the materials yourself, so that by the time you are going to tell the community, because that's where we have an issue. Our government, if it is the Ministry of Public Works, does not recognize the building material. And you're trying to promote that building material. So even if you want to build a school, the Public Works will not approve. They'll say, no, this material is not, because of the mentality. So let's have, before even you go to preach there, building your offices, start building using the materials. Building your houses, if it is government houses, maybe residential houses for the workers, use that material so that now the community can see you read by exams. That's what I wanted to correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other urgent comments? You wanted to say something, yeah?
I think I just wanted to find out whether any other country does have a policy for informal settlement, specifically not their housing policy. Is there any country you have for informal settlements?
Yes, we have. We have National Slum Upgrading and Prevention Policies, 2016. Yes, but we want to review it so that it can match up with the strategy which you are developing now.
Mm.
I think the strategy is
Yeah, good.
the strategy is going to be very comprehensive because it's also part of this KISIP. So just the policy is there. So just now I'm not speaking like you and I.
Yes.
That's cheating.
Yeah. That's it. No, it doesn't have to have a view on personalities. Yeah, so we want to have that to come at the same
Yeah.
level. Yes.
And how do you prevent land occupation? Because we don't call it land grab here. It's the illegal occupation. How do you prevent that?
It is very difficult to secure land because I think, like in my country, with the coming of democracy, we even have a place called Matibati because people went there and grabbed the land and they actually settled on roads. So it is very difficult, but I think the thing is, when land is zoned for different uses, it is better to secure that land. There's the one parcel of land in my country. It was the institution for institutional use, and then that institution put in the roads, they put in the infrastructure. That land has not been encroached on. It has not been encroached on. So it is very difficult to make sure that land is not encroached on. But I think, as I said, with time, if the people are empowered and government makes available affordable land for housing, the people are not going to go and grab the land. They are going to know that we are going to be allocated land. So it will take time, maybe not even in our lifetime. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, good conclusion. I think before I want to wrap up, I would like to invite Joshua. Do you want to say anything, some reflections from your side?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. What is coming out is that we have different approaches, but the problem is the same. You know, the problem is the same, but also it was manifesting in a different way. What we also coming out is that all this is because urbanization is happening quickly, and we do not have mechanisms in place to absorb the people coming to urban areas, who mostly will be coming from poorer or less, in different economic conditions, which will kind of they feel the city will be able to provide. So that is also something we have to do. So what we are dealing with now, we are dealing mostly with the situation, which is what has happened up to where we are. Now, what is going to happen is, unlikely to happen is that for South Africa, you are urbanized 58% to 60%. So you have another 20% to deal with, because at the same time, the projections is like will not have 100% urbanization according to the trends. So it will come to a point, and then somewhere in around 2050, we'll start seeing a little bit of rural people will move rural again. So what it means is the gap where the gap is. So if you have 20%, Malawi, I think here is the least urbanized, I think 20-something%. So they have 70-something% to go. Lesotho is around 30. It's actually moving fast. I think it's around 40 now.
No, we're still in our 30.
Yes, 30. So 34 something.
Yeah.
So we have the challenge, and we are talking about the future. The future is that Kenya is 40 something, but with the way it is going, in another 15 years, you should have crossed 50. So what we are saying is this: out of those 20-30% going to come, and you're looking at the rate of the poverty, it would be like saying, out of those people going to go to urban areas, you will have like 60-70% of them needing that kind of accommodation, needing that shelter. So now we are dealing with what has happened, but what is coming is still going to be much more a challenge. So that's why we need to think broader, and this kind of framework also is good to have to share those kind of ideas, like knowledge. How can we systematically address that? So let's just finish and give an example of South Africa. What you're dealing now with, you're not dealing with only you're actually dealing with urbanization of the region. We're not dealing urbanization of South Africa as a country. So if an average in Mozambique is 20%, part of the remaining average is also you have to share.
Yeah.
So as a regional economic powerhouse, people see.
Have all the cities there.
Yes, people see economic activities. They don't see barriers. That's been now, as we are speaking, we have situations of that immigration in the Mediterranean. People are crossing the ocean, knowing the dangers. Survival rate is like 1 to 9 to 10, but they are doing it. Why? Because people see the economic activity. They don't see barriers. So the barriers are created, but they don't address what people want. So for your case, it becomes more challenging. But then that's where the opportunity opens itself, that we stop thinking about us over here. We start thinking about how do we flip the situation the other way and see as our own regional problem. Someone wanting a job in Malawi in the rural area and knows that if I'm a farm boy in Malawi and I'm earning $30 a month, and I can get the same farm job in Bloemfontein and get 100 a month or 200 a month, will not think about the boundaries. We'll want to get to Bloemfontein first, and once you get there, it's when they will realize they'll have a place to sleep. So that means it becomes a regional issue. So we have to think, that's why we are saying then we can't, as much as we have all those national strategies, national policies, the investments, they will not be enough if we don't think about it like as a region, as countries which have this problem. How can we have more integrated strategy to deal with urban poverty? Okay, it's an urban poverty issue. And poverty is, I think there was a good quote yesterday from when we were closing from the minister about what Mandela said about poverty and slavery. They had the same. I'm not paraphrasing exactly what she said, but it's like you find that when people are poor, they do not see all those things. If you went to, when you went to the rugby club, the people who are there have a lot of aspirations. Yes, we see them like, oh, they're living in this, but for them, it's a stage, as you say, it's a stage towards the future. And it's going to be like that. Africa has that problem because we are urbanizing much later, but we are urbanizing in a situation whereby the economic, it's not growing. Because in last century in South Africa, urbanization was driven by the pool of the jobs in the mines, in the industries. So you just I'm sure that you will get a job, even if the conditions were not good, you get a job. But now you see a situation whereby those jobs are not there. Even when you feel they are there, but they are not there. So we have to build together. We have to learn from each other. We have to be innovative. We have to think out of the box. What works for you? I can pick something which works, and I kind of innovate with what I have and look for a solution. So I'm very grateful that we are able to bring all these issues on the table. And going forward, I think for me, what would be the best would be like if we could solidify the issue of learning from each other, sharing these ideas, and also coming up with practical approaches to the problems we have. Others have to thank you again, and hopefully we'll do the technical, physical meeting soon, and start looking at an action plan with this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I would then just like to confirm, are you all available for the meeting to organize and bring your perspectives? They were quite diverse. I think it was really great. So we could maybe have follow-up discussions and organize this meeting and then invite the broader stakeholders for an online meeting on this. Yep, you're available. So that's great news. So then we start looking at the action plan from the practitioner perspective. So that's excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. And then I think we can continue discussing during lunch. And yeah, really great discussions, and thanks for all the contributions, even though I know you must all be a bit tired and also pressed with travel and other things to do in town. But thank you so much for being here. And yeah, thank you for South Africa also for hosting us here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy it.
Yes, we did.